Okay, so I get to introduce NIKKI Ware. She's a Pulaski County native who began, excuse me, her higher education career at Somerset Community College, earning an Associate of Arts degree in arts, sorry. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Business and Marketing Education from Eastern Kentucky University. While teaching in the K-12 system, NIKKI earned her Master's in Education, Literary Specialist, a middle grade Social Studies certification, and 9 graduate hours of English. She is currently in her second year at Morehead State University, working towards her doctorate in educational leadership, focused on educational technology. Congrats, that's quite a process, NIKKI. Been there. She has been with SCC since the fall of 2010, teaching reading comprehension courses. She currently resides in Casey County with her husband and 2 sons on a beef cattle farm. When not teaching or learning, NIKKI is perfecting her canning recipes or swimming in the creek with her boys. Both of those are favored activities of myself as well, so I will go ahead and turn it over to NIKKI.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to share my presentation within Collaborate here. Hopefully it all goes off without a hitch. So today we're going to, my presentation is about chunking. And the goal here is chunking a course for maximum effectiveness. So, first of all, happy Friday, guys. It's Friday. I don't know about you all, but it has been a long week around here. And today, just in this building alone, it's kind of been the day where things have gone wrong. One of my colleagues spilled her coffee coming in the door, and the other one just blew up her lunch in the microwave. So I'm hoping this goes good. So far, it's not been that great today. So why you should listen to me, a little bit about myself, and I guess my experience with chunking is that I teach reading comprehension here at Somerset. And as part of the reading comprehension, chunking is something that we discuss to help with short-term memory and their working memory. So students can put that information away and be able to recall it later. I have completed the KOOL Academy where we've learned about chunking. And the ladies who develop the KOOL Academy and do the KOOL Academy do such a wonderful job at teaching that information. And then also I did win the exemplary course award for my Reading 185 course that I worked on and completed as part of the KOOL Academy. Why chunking is important to us is, of course, one, student success. We all want our students to be successful in our courses. And it goes beyond just being successful like on paper. We want them to remember the topics and the content because a lot of our stuff scaffolds and builds as they complete their program. And then also locally, I'm sure this is at everybody's college, we're discussing the key standards. And standard 1.4 talks about how we need to chunk our materials in manageable sections for our students. Okay. If at any time you have a question, of course, pop it into the chat. If you don't understand something, holler out to Julie or whatever, and we can stop if we need to. Okay. All right, so let's do a little exercise. Let me grab my phone real quick. I want to, on the next screen, I am going to pop up a list of words. And I am going to give you all 60 seconds to remember these words. Okay, do your best to remember as many as you can, and I will tell you this, they are repeated. Okay, so All right. 60 seconds is up. How many words do you remember? And you can just pop off a number into the chat. How many of those words do you remember? $12. Awesome. 10. Especially ski. I love that. So, John, they're in Casey County. We're going to get a little off topic here. They're in Casey County. We have ski. But if I cross the county line into Pulaski County, where Somerset Community College is, there's no ski in this county. There's like an invisible little line that says we can't have it over here. So a lot of you guys did pretty good. Some double-digit numbers. Great, 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 great. Do you think you could have remembered more of them if you had a strategy, though? Yeah, you kind of had a strategy. Maybe if you thought about, grouping them somehow, chunking, or dealing a way to remember them by separating them into smaller groups, right? Because of the words you remember, it's getting hard. I'm sure you guys could probably think of some themes that you saw within those words. Yeah. Erica, you mentioned cars, seasons, holidays. And those of you that see me on my video, I have dual screens, so I'm kind of looking between the chat and the presentation and stuff. Yes, Jennifer, you've got it. You've used the chunking. I love it. Okay. So yeah, let's look at this again. And this time, let's just think of it like 30 seconds. Okay. And I closed out of my timer, of course. So let's do this again for just 30 seconds and look at these words again and see how many more of them you remember. All right. So how many words did you get that time? Here's a full list of the words. If you grouped them by groups, you would have had the seasons, vehicle manufacturers, holidays, and drinks. I think there's 20 words, 19, 20 words on there. So did anybody do better once you thought of it as in groups or list? That's how you remember them. Yeah. Our brains kind of naturally look for patterns and stuff. So those of you that notice the patterns or the themes in the original ones, that's because we typically do that. Our brains are just naturally wired to do things like that. So great. Yeah. Definitely better. Definitely better when we can find a theme. It's easier to remember things. Like if you think back to when we were younger, like in school, we were given ways to remember things. Like I was in band, so I remember learning the notes as every good boy does fine. Okay. Or, math concepts, PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, things like that. That's grouping them. That's finding a way to kind of shorten it and make it useful to where we can store it. Yes. See, that's what we do. Our brains naturally do this. All right. So why do we chunk? Well, first of all, our brains can only hold, not our whole brain. Let me shorten that. Let me reword that. Our working memory can only hold 5 to 7 little pieces of information. Okay, so if you think about like our social security numbers or phone numbers, how we kind of break them up into pieces is to help us remember them. Okay, so it aids our working memory by breaking down large amounts of information to smaller amounts. Okay, and sometimes even when we break it in smaller amounts, if you're like me, I repeat a phone number over and over because sometimes just chunking it up still doesn't help me. I love that you guys are throwing more in there. Yes, foil, first, outer, inner, last. See, I forgot about that one. And let's see, Erica, is that one the planets? The my very edge. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I love that. All of those are ways that we chunk and break down information to better remember it. So great. See, we got this. Um, Another reason that I wanted to bring out that we chunk, not only for our memory and stuff like this, but we're going to talk about chunking our content in our courses. And as part of chunking our content in courses, not only does it help our students with learning the content, but it can also help our student with access issues. If students are using their phone at home to look at information, or they only have a short amount of time, or maybe their internet's not great. So chunking benefits not just the student by helping them learn, but also in other ways. Look at the example here that I pulled out of my reading book, okay? And it says, suppose you have a small bag that can only hold 7 coins. If you put in 7 pennies, the value is going to be only 7 cents. But if you place 7 quarters, 7 silver dollars, or 7 gold coins, its capacity will remain the same, but its value will be significantly enhanced. Okay? That's what our brains can do by using chunking. It's still going to hold the same capacity, but we can enhance the value that we have in there by chunking. Okay? So the next thing is like, what does this got to do with course design, right? Because it's like, okay, you're teaching me about memory stuff. Because I'm a reading instructor. That's what I do. But chunking has to do with course design because it's a leading concept that is found in successful online courses. Okay? And that's what we want. If you teach online, ultimately you want to make sure your course is a successful course. You do not want a course that has a high failure rate. You want to make sure your students are learning and growing and using that knowledge. Okay. One thing to think about, like when you're thinking about your courses, take a second and think about your online courses. Have you ever received an email from a student that's like, where is this assignment? I see it on the list, but I can't find it. Or maybe you get those emails that are a student saying, hey, I overlooked that assignment. I didn't realize that was due. Is there any way I can still turn that in? Has anybody experienced those type questions? I know I have. Will not lie. I've experienced those questions. Like, I overlooked this. I couldn't find it. Yeah. Sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes those questions um, could be solved with taking a look at your course design and revamping some things to enhance the student experience by chunking. Okay, because that might be why they've misplaced it. And you'll see some examples here as to why. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how we can chunk in our online course. Okay, so the KOOL Academy taught me this. All right, if you've taken the KOOL Academy, or if you're a part of the design of it, you know that this is the 3 areas that we discuss chunking in that. We talk about chunking, first of all, as the course level, just how your entire course is organized. So if you're thinking about course level chunking, you're thinking about the content page. When you first log into Ultra, that content page. How do you have that page organized? Okay. I use learning modules, strongly suggest that. But your learning modules are how you can work on chunking at this level. Okay. And there's many options we'll talk about. The second type of chunking that we can do in a course is within the learning module. How do you have that information chunked? How does your module look? How is the information presented to that student? And the third one is document level. And when I talk about document, I'm talking about documents within Ultra that you create, or like Word documents that you're also might be attaching or uploading into Excel, such as your syllabus. Okay, so how do you chunk information within a document? Again, all of this is looking at how you're organizing and breaking your content up at these three different levels. Okay, any questions so far? Let's see, Amy put KOOL Academy. Yes, I learned so much in the KOOL Academy. Shameless plug for the KOOL Academy. Do it if you haven't already. All right, so let's talk about the first one, course level chunking. So course level chunking, again, like I said, is talking about your learning modules. Okay, so how you have your course design on that content page. This is a quick little snippet of my reading course. I have mine divided up into chapter units. Okay, I did that because that's how my textbook is kind of divided up. Each of those chapters, the way they're grouped, like chapters 4 through 6, go together. The content in those three chapters are similar. And I'm just now noticing that somehow I've got one out of place here on my example. How dare me? Such a mess. Anyways, but each of those learning modules, those chapters within them go together. The topics and the content relate to each other and build upon each other. Okay, so other options that you can do here though is you can organize by weeks. Okay, weeks, individual chapters. You don't have to group chapters like I did into units. You can do individual chapters. This part is up to you and what works best for your course, your textbook, the content that you're teaching. Okay, this is just what works best for me because within these units, it allows for scaffolding with my reading comprehension strategies. So we talk about main ideas and then we move into summarizing, which is where you pull those main ideas. Okay, so what works for you is how you would want to look at chunking at the course level. Okay, here's what not to do at the course level. Okay, don't do this. Don't make it to where your students are having to figure out where things are. Okay, start here, pretty common, but after that, you might have all your chapter readings. You might have 10 chapters in yours. You've got 10 chapters of reading in there, and then you might have 20 videos. And it's very difficult for the student to understand what video goes with what reading and what assignment and what quizzes go together because they're in different areas of the course. So the goal here with course level chunking, you could say, is to not make students search for everything, to kind of have things that go together in the same learning module. Okay, this could be confusing and overwhelming. And I say this as a current student. Julie mentioned that I'm doing the EDD program at Moorhead, and I have an instructor who does their course like this, and it drives me crazy. I constantly feel like I'm missing something or possibly overlooking something. So there goes that, overlooking email. I'm sorry, I missed that assignment. I didn't notice it, or I didn't realize it went with this. Fixing your course level chunking can help with those. All right, let's go into the next level, which is learning module chunking. Okay, again, this is an example from my reading course, how I have my learning modules chunked. Okay, I start out by a module overview, okay, which tells my students, hey, we're talking about this in this learning module. And then I go into the chapters. And what I do is I group my content within the learning module by chapter. So like they'll have the chapter 4 e-textbook, then they'll have their chapter 4 homework with Cengage, and then they'll have their outline, as you can see, strategy and assignment that goes along with chapter 4. Okay, and then we move into chapter 5 and then chapter 6. And then at the end of the learning module, if there are any assignments or projects that tie it all in together, I'll have that assignment at the bottom. Okay. This promotes scaffolding, and it also allows the students to work from top to bottom in kind of a logical order. Okay, it's intuitive that, hey, I start here and I can just work my way down this list. Okay. Yeah, folders with that week's stuff in it. Yeah, if you divide it by weeks, everything for that week is going to be in that one folder instead of multiple places. Exactly, Elizabeth. It's, when you're thinking about chunking, it's about organizing and grouping things into learning modules or folders to where everything's together for the student and they're not left guessing as to where something is. I think we got a hand up. Pam,
What we're
can I unmute Julie?
Nikki, what we're seeing here, is this placed at the content level, or is this inside a folder, or?
This is inside a learning module.
Okay.
Yeah, so the one before, so like this is what my learning modules look like on the content page in Blackboard. And then when you click on one of these, I think the example I'm using is this one, the second one, then it will, inside that learning module, this is how I have my stuff organized.
Okay, got it.
That makes sense, Pam?
Yes.
Awesome. Let's see here. So Jenny, Cengage does allow on the e-textbook for it to take them directly to that chapter, but as far as the homework, it takes them just to the list of homework. But I still put that individual link in there so they know that, hey, after I do this reading, I have this homework. I hope that makes sense. I wish it would take it directly to it. Sometimes it does. I think it also depends on how you have it organized, the view that you have set up. But Cengage will allow you to do multiple direct links. Yeah. I can show you sometime, or you could probably ask your rep, but there is a way to direct link content. The thing is, I just like to break it down instead of just giving them a single link, because once they click on that single link, they're presented everything, and they might like, oh, what do I do first? Okay. Any other questions on that part? Like chunking at the module level? Like I said, the goal here at the module level is just to kind of keep things together that go together. And it's kind of the goal when chunking all together, keeping things together that go together. This is what it should not look like in your learning modules, okay? If you've got your readings all at the top and then your assignments and then your quizzes, students are more likely to just start at the bottom or the top and work their way down, instead of, like, if your assignment 1 goes directly with the chapter 1 reading or the quiz, put them together so they work with them. Make it user friendly for the student, okay? It's an easy way so they can visually see the grouping, like, okay, this stuff goes together, I'm gonna work on this, and then I'm gonna move on to the next chapter or the next topic. All right, now let's break it on down even further into looking at a document, okay? And I have 2 types of documents. We know working in Ultra, when you go into create, you can create a document where you can type stuff directly in. So this is kind of what the inside of my module overview would look like, right? I've broken items into sections. I even use section headings, which help break it up and show that here's this bit, here's this next piece, and here's the next piece. Chunking, using a visual cue. Chunking a document helps create the white space, so it's not overwhelming to students. They're not seeing a whole bunch of text and be like, ooh. It does help increase comprehension, okay? And also it's good for screen readers, accessibility there. Okay. Let me show you what chunking also looks like if you were using a Word document. Okay, and this is just a snippet of my syllabus. Okay, notice how there are headings. They're in bold font. There's a space between the sections to kind of break it up again. Again, it's that visual breaking, chunking pieces. It's visually chunked. Another thing is with the Word document, one thing that I'm passionate about, let's say now, is ensuring that like the headings that I use, like catalog, course description, required textbook, I'm also using the heading setting in Word because it'll automatically format it to where it stands out differently. When you are doing this, we'll go back a slide. When you're doing this in Blackboard, you can also change those heading settings to where you have larger font. You don't have to go in and make it a different color or highlight it or anything like that. Just the basic size or boldness of the font can help show the chunks or the topics and break it apart for you. Okay, remember when you're doing this, font size, colors, things like that, don't get too crazy because you want to make sure it's accessible. So the easiest way is to use those headings. All right, and here's what not to do. Don't do this, okay? Because that's a lot of information there, and there's nothing that stands out to the student. They can't quickly scan my syllabus and say, oh, there's her office hour, or there's the textbook that I need. Okay? It's not chunked at all. It's not visually pleasing. And this one is not showing you all of it. Let me see if I zoom out some. Nope. So on this slide, can you guys, do you see it where it just starts with the word research?
Yep, that's what we see, yes.
That's what I thought. See? Oh, okay. So on this one, it should say, neuroscience and educational research indicate that students need to acquire new content in small, logical pieces. Don't we all feel that way? Don't we all feel like we have to, like new information needs to come in small chunks, not big, large chunks, because it's overwhelming. Oh, Elizabeth, yeah, yeah. I understand that. We use a common syllabus too here at SEC. Ours is not locked down as much. I do go in and tweak mine to where it has headings and things like that to make it more accessible for screen readers and stuff. You might bring that up that that it needs to be looked at for accessibility, and maybe, um, yeah. Yeah. Here locally in our local rules committee is the one that takes care of the syllabus template. And I actually mentioned that we were talking about it the other day with one of them. And so they're going to take a look at ours to try to increase the accessibility of it. So, but it is important. Neuroscience and educational research shows that we need to use small logical pieces when acquiring new content. All right, last thoughts on chunking. Last thoughts on chunking here is that when you're chunking, don't just go in there and be like, oh, she says I need to chunk stuff, so I'm gonna throw these 3 chapters together and these next 4 and these last 2. Okay, no. Be intentional with your course design and be intentional with your chunking. Look for things that go together and complete each other or scaffold. Students have to, if you think about it, we have to learn how to read before we can write sentences, and we have to, we have to learn how to write. Sorry, I'm thinking about reading. We have to learn how to write words before we can write sentences, before we can write paragraphs, before we can write papers. So scaffold some of that content. Pull things together that go together. Think about your course from your student's view. Okay. Does it flow logically? Does it make sense that you start here and move to this next thing? Okay. Another thing that I didn't touch on one of the other ones, but I do have it on here, is that from the student view, think about those long lectures and assignments, and can you break them up? If you have a large project where there's multiple components to it, can you break those components out and work on, like as you're doing this chapter, complete this component of it. The next chapter, complete the next component. Can you break that into pieces to where it's a little bit smaller for students to work on, and then at the end, come up with putting it all together? And I've got one more quote for you, and watch this one not be on the screen either. Nope. See? Oh, so mad. On this one, it says the ultimate goal of chunking content is that learners acquire, engage, and store information, take advantage of images, short videos, games, audios, podcasts, practice quizzes, and other multimedia means that can reduce working memory demands. Any questions? I am now fully open to all your questions. Yes. Thank you, Julie, for putting that in there. I don't know why it does that.
You're welcome to raise your hand to ask questions or put them in the chat.
Yes. Go ahead and ask questions about it. I do have the slides in here, and then I also sent them in, so they should be on the KOOLCon site.
All right, Jennifer has a question. Do you have any suggestions on whether it is better to present all chunks at once or open one chunk upon completion of another chunk?
Honestly, I guess that's up to you as far as when you're designing your course. Personally, I do not like using the adaptive release. With online courses, I find that students, a lot of my students like to know what's coming ahead, what's coming in the next couple weeks. So I usually have everything open so they can plan a little bit. But that also depends on, the content. If you're working on a project and they must complete this portion of that project first, then I don't see why you wouldn't set up some sort of adaptive release, if that makes sense. Definitely, yes, that is true, Elizabeth. Sometimes they do that. I set due dates throughout, and I make sure that they are very visible, and I also send weekly announcements out that say, hey, here's the next due date. This is what's due on that due date. So I send reminders to ensure that they're not trying to push it off to the very end. There are pros and cons with it, though. Oh, thank you, Kim.
All right, well, while we're waiting to find out if there's any more questions that people might post, I wanted to announce that Chet Cunningham has won the Random Attendance Award for the session. He won an over-ear headphones with microphone. So the Office of Online Learning will get with you this week.
Awesome. Let's see. Elizabeth, yeah, on your adaptive release, if I'm not mistaken, you Blackboard gurus, make sure, check me on this. You can set the adaptive release up two ways, like one for a date and also if they complete like a certain assignment. So like what I was talking about, if you were having like a project where they needed to complete one thing before the other, once that project is submitted, then the next part would open. Does that answer your question, Elizabeth? Ooh, I don't know if you can combine those. I don't use adaptive release much myself.
Has anyone used it more recently than I have? Because the last time I used it has been a while and you could not combine them, but someone please. Erica, go ahead. Erica will probably know this.
I'm not sure if this is specifically what you're asking, but I do know that they have added a few options to where you can either have it set to where they've completed the previous unit or by date, and also even by person, I think. But there's a few different criteria that you can sort of choose from that may help with your specific course. So if you want to use a combination, and then it can also hide content and then things like that. So I would kind of look and see what they just recently added. But I do know it was somewhat limiting initially, but they seem to have added more options in the last several months.
Thank you, Erica.
Definitely a good answer to that because I don't use it often enough to know. Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, Elizabeth, I think that would be a good suggestion. Because I totally understand what you're wanting to do with that. To encourage them to get it done, but also have it for those that are moving along. So, yes.
All right, well, once again, I'll wait to see if there's any others and slow it down a little bit. I wanted to encourage everyone to attend the final lunch session with Dr. Plotz. And I'm going to go ahead and post the session conference evaluation link in just a moment here, as well as in the recording. So stick around for a little bit, ask questions. Otherwise, in order to get the recording to start processing, I will have to start removing people at the time, but we have 5 minutes. So please ask questions if you have them. It's a little bit ominous.
Yeah, ask questions or Julie will remove you. No.
Was it one of those ors? I don't remember saying that, Nikki.
No. Thank you all. I appreciate it, especially the comments and the questions. Good discussions.
All right, looks like we don't have any questions, although,
Nope.
you know, apparently I threatened people with booting to get it, but
That's
thank you very
okay.
much, Nikki.
All right.